very excited to be here with all of you today to talk about Giving Tuesday, and particularly about monthly giving and peer-to-peer fundraising on Giving Tuesday, which is such an exciting opportunity to take advantage of a day that's become so important on the giving calendar. And I'm particularly excited to be partnering with the Maryland Gives More campaign, which, as some of you may know, is an organization that is really taking a leadership role in the state of Maryland to lead a campaign to be the most generous state in Maryland on Giving Tuesday. In a form, it'll be our third year. We started in Baltimore with the Be More Gives More campaign back in 2013, and then last year the team at Maryland Gives More led a statewide Maryland Gives More campaign that raised nearly $9.2 million, and I've personally had the pleasure of being involved with Giving Tuesday campaigns over the last couple of years in the leadership role that have totaled nearly $20 million. And so what we're going to talk about today is in particular some of the, I think, really strategic strategies that have come out of Giving Tuesday around monthly giving and peer-to-peer. And I would really encourage you all to think about these as great options for making the most of Giving Tuesday. And then also, of course, to signing up, if you haven't already, on the Maryland Gives More site as a partner for the Maryland Gives More campaign on Giving Tuesday. And then you'll have access to the great tools and resources that they're sharing, to weekly tips, and to other assets that should help to make your Giving Tuesday planning a little easier. So with that, let me jump in. For those of you that have participated in a number of these webinars, there's going to be one or two slides that are reinforcing a couple of thoughts that you've heard before, but I like to always set the stage just so that everybody starts from the same place. So, what is the story with Giving Tuesday? Well, as some of you know, Giving Tuesday is now, it's actually 3 years old, but we're about to have our fourth Giving Tuesday this year. It's about 11 weeks away at this point, and we couldn't be more excited about how Giving Tuesday has grown completely organically around the world. This year we anticipate Giving Tuesday being in 30 to 40 countries with hundreds of thousands of nonprofits and NGOs and millions of donors. And all of this has happened, with essentially no staff. No one sort of owns Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is part of the work that's done with the Center for Innovation and Social Impact at the 92nd Street Y in New York. It's one of 10 or 12 programs led by that group of 4 people who work really hard to sort of bring Giving Tuesday to the world, but then to sort of let the world take it and own it in the way that makes the most sense for them. And when a nonprofit jumps into Giving Tuesday, what they find often is that it can become like a virtual party for your cause. Why do Giving Days work? They work because, first and foremost, it's an opportunity to raise funds and attract new donors. It's an incredible chance to tell your story. There's such a wave of interest in nonprofits on Giving Tuesday, and it's a terrific opportunity to both tell your story to people that may already know you. Perhaps they've given to you at some point in the past. Perhaps they haven't, but they've been following you online or reading about you in the paper, and it's a great chance to tell a really powerful, pointed story, and we'll talk a little bit about storytelling as we go through this. Giving Tuesday and Giving Days generally can just be a lot of fun because they are an amazing chance to rally your team around a big cause, which is perhaps the goal to raise a certain amount of money or to recruit a certain number of monthly donors. And typically, you'll find that at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, you've got the whole team sitting in a room and you're watching your tallies, go up, and it's a really exciting day for everyone. It's a terrific chance to give your passionate supporters a voice in helping to spread the word about you. I'm just going to, one housekeeping note, if you aren't muted, if you could please hit *6 right now, we'd really appreciate it. Finally, the last two, the megaphone and the launch, are two really critically important points. Giving Tuesday has become truly a day that celebrates nonprofits on the giving calendar, every year. And so the news cycle of Giving Tuesday is out there reaching people who may never have thought to step up and be a giver before. And so the megaphone of Giving Tuesday has really become something that can be a catalyst for new support to nonprofits. And we really encourage you to be in the conversation so that you get your fair share of those new donors inspired by your good work. And then finally, Giving Tuesday has really become the launch of the giving season. And if you think about your campaign the right way, and if you want to hear more about that, there's a couple webinars on the Maryland Gives More site that we've done already that really talk about how to frame a campaign so that it's the beginning of the giving season. But if you do it the right way, you really can carry that energy and excitement of Giving Tuesday all the way through year end. And again, if I could just remind everyone, since we did have that issue with the muting, if you could just mute yourself, *6, we'd really appreciate it. We are still hearing a little bit of background noise on the phone. Thank you so much. So how do you design a successful Giving Tuesday campaign? There are a couple of general themes that apply no matter what kind of campaign you're doing. The first is to decide who you're targeting. Do you want to target new donors? Do you want to target young donors? Do you want to target millennials? Do you want to target existing donors to give in a new way? Identifying your targets is a critical part of any campaign. Secondly, what is the story that you want to tell? Giving Tuesday, as I said a moment ago, is an opportunity to tell a fresh, interesting, targeted story about your nonprofit. And you really want to think creatively because it's a day when there's going to be a lot of volume of communication around inspiring nonprofits, and you want to think about the kind of story that can really break through. The third key point in the great campaign is impact. Donors increasingly want to understand the impact of their donation, not just the broad scope of your work, but the impact that these dollars can have on something that you do. The fourth is to really encourage people to spread the word. So you not only want them to give or to volunteer, but you want them to take that good feeling they get when they participate in your work in some way and spread that word to their friends and family members. This next point is you want to delight your donors and your prospects and your volunteers, and that can take a lot of forms, but this might be the most underappreciated but perhaps most important part of a great campaign. If your donors have an experience where something happens, some little surprise, some particularly poignant thank you, perhaps a Vine video of somebody you serve saying thank you in a meaningful way. There's lots of creative ways that you can do it, but think about that little surprise, that little unexpected appreciation that you can share with your donors, and you'll be amazed at what a difference that can make. And then finally, it is the beginning of the giving season, and you want to make sure that you're really thinking about your campaign in a way that allows you to set yourself up not just for a great Giving Tuesday, but for a great December. So, on a day when there's going to be so much excitement and so many nonprofits communicating with people around our great state of Maryland, how do you break through in under 30 seconds, which they sort of say is the amount of time you've got to capture somebody's attention with an email or even a direct mail piece? And the trick to that is to projectize. And so you want to take your campaign and break it down into some kind of an element that people can get their head around. And you can do this even if you're talking about raising operating dollars or unrestricted dollars. So if you're a direct service organization, you could projectize a campaign by breaking down your campaign into how many people you serve in a given year and what that costs. And so maybe if it costs $2,000 to serve somebody in a given year, you can talk about the fact that it's $2,000, which is $500 a quarter, which is $166 a month, which is $34 a day. So you can think about ways to really break your campaign down. That was just off the top of my head. That last one didn't work. But you can think about ways to really break your campaign down into such a way that people can feel like they understand your campaign in just a second, and they feel like they can get their arms around it. And then one of the things that most lends itself to is the idea of these very strategic opportunities for getting people excited about giving to you. One is Giving Monthly, and one is peer-to-peer fundraising. And so why should you consider Giving Monthly as a Giving Tuesday strategy? Well, there are so many terrific reasons. It's certainly an appealing strategy for young people. If any of you have read the Millennial Impact Report, which comes out every year, almost 60% of millennials say that they want to support charities by giving monthly. They love the whole subscription buying thing. Many of you know companies like Birchbox and Dollar Shave Club and people like that. That's a real movement among millennials. They sort of like that, put your credit card in once and keep getting what you want over and over again. Well, giving is really a way of getting that virtual feeling over and over again every month. And it absolutely redefines your relationship with your donor when you emphasize monthly giving. Because instead now of asking them periodically to give to support your mission, they're already giving every month. And now what you're doing is you're thanking them, you're celebrating them, you're telling them the good news about what difference their donations have made instead of asking. So you've fundamentally redefined your relationship with your donor. But in terms of Giving Tuesday, why think about giving monthly? It's an opportunity to raise more dollars. People give more in the course of a year when they're asked to give monthly than they give if they're asked to make a one-time donation. How does that work? Well, if you think about it, it's much easier for somebody to decide to give you $20 a month than to decide to give you, $200 in a year. But that $20 a month adds up to more than $200 a year. So you're much more likely to attract a donor who can give you more than they might have given you in a one-time donation. The second part is stability. So, monthly donors provide you with a base of recurring donations that are there month in, month out, year in, year out. And that can be a real stabilizer for your organization if you become good at making monthly giving a priority. Another key point on this is that the average first-time donor is going to give a second time to your organization only 27% of the time. So if you think about that in reverse, 73% of your first-time donors will never give to your organization again. But when you recruit a monthly donor, the average time that a monthly donor stays with your organization is 4 to 4.2 years. So once people make that decision to put that credit card in and give monthly, it is a very difficult decision for them to decide to stop being generous. So people really tend to stay with organizations that they support on a monthly basis. The third is it's appealing. Because you've reframed that relationship with your monthly donor, and now they're getting, again, thank yous, they're getting celebrated, they're getting communications about the impact they've made. Instead of being asked, you have this incredible appeal as an organization where you can then say to them new things. You can say, would you consider spreading the word? Maybe would you consider making your monthly gift a little bit more? You can really steward and nurture those relationships in a way that's difficult when you're asking for money. And that rolls right into that point of engagement, which is that you can be very creative about doing special things to engage your monthly donors. You can have periodic events, you can have special societies, and we'll talk about a couple of those ideas in a second. So how do you do it? Make your Giving Tuesday campaign a monthly giving campaign. So for example, we say that one of the first things about a Giving Tuesday campaign is that you need to set a goal. So here would be a perfect example of how to bring that all together. So weave your monthly giving campaign into your Giving Tuesday campaign. So your Giving Tuesday campaign might be that you want to attract 200 people to pledge $20 a month. That kind of a campaign is very tangible. It's very specific. It gives a goal that your team can rally around, and it's very clear and straightforward. And the kind of people that will get excited about a campaign like this are the kind of people you want to be reaching on a day like Giving Tuesday. These are probably not going to be your major donor targets, and that's great because you've got the whole month of December to think about them. These are likely to be those either first-time donors or younger donors who may grow to be major givers once they get to know your organization better. But these are those donors who really want a chance to give to your mission and to feel that that sustained support really allows them to have an impact. What's another example of how you weave it into a campaign? Well, think about something that your organization does. So if you're an animal organization, think about a campaign around puppy love, where you might ask people to consider giving $50 a month, which might be the food for one puppy each month. When you break it down to a very specific need or example like that, now you're giving your donor the chance to really understand the impact of their donation and to feel good every single month. You could send a picture of a different puppy that was in the shelter every single month to reinforce that good feeling about the impact that donor had by making a monthly donation. The next thing is to then take that original goal and break it down so it's bite-sized. Make your marketing so easy that your donor feels like, well, how could I not do this? So you take those same two examples, and in your 20 by 200 campaign, what you're really asking is donors to make a gift of just 66 cents a day. That's $20 a month. Or in your puppy love campaign, you're asking donors to help with $1.66 a day. So these are great taglines. These are great subject lines for an email. But when you take that campaign and take it down even to that further sort of bite-sized ask, now you're sort of making it like, oh my God, well that's so easy. How could I not jump in and help? The next key thing, and I cannot emphasize this enough, and this can be a little bit of work between now and Giving Tuesday, but it is so worth it, is make sure that whatever message you are sending in your campaign carries all the way through to your donation page and to your thank you that pops up after your donation. Now for some of you, if you've got a really small organization and you use something like just a PayPal button, that can be a little bit trickier. But I would argue that it would be worth you investing in even the really super low-cost online giving sites that allow you to have a giving page that carries all the way through with your words and your graphics, because the number one issue with online donating is that donors abandon. Once they leave the page where the inspiring ask is, donors will get to that online giving page that's very impersonal and doesn't carry that message through, and they'll leave because they've sort of lost their mojo. So if you have the ability to do it, consider how you can carry your campaign message all the way through to that donation amount so you don't let them forget why they're there. The third key piece of inspiring people to give monthly is to create a club. People really want to feel that if they take this step of supporting your organization on a monthly basis, that you're recognizing in them in some special way. So many organizations have a special name for their recurring giving group that identifies them, that separates them out. They might even have a special place on their website where they're recognized. But think about how to create a club that makes your recurring givers really feel as special as they are to your organization. And this actually shows that point, but then also shows our next key point, which is that you really want to demonstrate clear impact so a donor can choose that monthly gift that will really make a difference in a way that they can understand. So here you see both that Charity Water defines its monthly giving group as its pipeline group, but then they also take these monthly giving amounts and they are incredibly specific about what that giving amount can do. So you see odd numbers like 23 months, 2 pump attendants, 1 bicycle. So they're taking these very clear and specific goals that sound very real, and they're communicating that very specifically to their donors. So the next really exciting opportunity to take advantage of on GivingTuesday is peer-to-peer fundraising. And I love peer fundraising on a whole lot of levels, not the least of which is that in a lot of ways, people that are willing to step up and raise funds for you are really like, superheroes, right? Like there's somebody that's putting on a cape for the greater good and who's saying, I not only believe in what you do, but I'm willing to put myself out there and ask others to help me support you in a bigger way. And so why is peer-to-peer fundraising attractive? One is that people really like to give to people. And it's a real opportunity. People tend to have a lot of overlap in their networks. So you have this sense that you're joining together as a group or as a community to do something big for an organization or a cause you care about. Often people that want to launch a peer fundraiser have a personal story to tell. And perhaps their personal story is how they've been impacted by your work. Perhaps their personal story is about why they serve on your board, or their personal story is that they've seen the impact of your work firsthand. But that chance to tell a personal story and invite friends and family members to come with you and make a difference is really appealing to people. And then finally, on most of the sites that offer peer-to-peer fundraising, there's this great, very subtle form of peer pressure in that you see a scrolling wall, and most people don't choose anonymous. All the sites allow that as an option, but it does provide that really kind of subtle peer pressure where people see that lots of other people have also given to this person's campaign. I want to be part of that too. So peer fundraising is work, and I don't want to minimize that because it requires, enlisting peer fundraisers. It requires, feeding them great information and helping them get set up. And in some cases, if you don't have a site that enables peer fundraising, it might entail you taking the time. And look, this can happen super easily. This can all be done in a matter of an hour. It's not complicated, but it does take somebody deciding that it's important. So I wanted to give you a couple of facts that can help you understand why it's worth it. The first one is probably the most important one. But if you send out a solicitation email, the typical response in a typical organization around the country is that 1 in 1,250 people will actually get that email and go all the way through to a donation. But in peer fundraising, 1 in 4 people actually donate. So if you think about the work it might take you to enlist peer fundraisers and to arm them with the information to raise funds for you on GivingTuesday, yes, it's work, but the hit rate of those outbound solicitations from those ambassadors to their friends and family is so disproportionately likely to generate donations for you and to create this whole new group of donors to steward and cultivate that it can really be worth the effort. The second point is that peer fundraising campaigns get much more traction on social media. So, if you think about, again, that people really respond to their friends, they're going to respond very differently seeing a friend raising funds on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, than they are if it's an organizational outreach, talking about GivingTuesday. And then the other really key piece of data that I think is critical is, nonprofits are constantly looking for great ways to generate new donors, and 71% of all donors that come in through peer fundraising campaigns are first-time donors to an organization. So if you need the facts, or if you need to run this up the flagpole with your executive director or your board chair, these are the facts that make it worth it to think about a peer fundraising campaign. So who are your potential peer fundraisers? So sometimes they're past donors. They're those passionate donors that are so bought into your mission that they're looking for other ways to extend their support. Maybe they can't give any more than they give to you now, but they've got a voice with their friends and family, and they can reach out to their friends and family to really leverage their passion for your cause. Board members are great peer fundraisers because clearly just by virtue of the time and energy that they put into your organization, they're passionate about your work. You've got to make it easy for them. You've got to show them that data I just showed you to kind of get them to buy into it, but they can be fantastic fundraisers for your cause. Your staff, who is more passionate about the work you do and understands the impact better than your staff members. Then this next one, children, is the children of your donors, your board, and your staff. I've seen so many campaigns where young people who have a parent who's a passionate donor to a cause or serves on a board or works for an organization, and they want to raise funds. Again, they can't give a lot, but they know they have big networks and they have social media savvy. And so it can be an incredible way to invite the children of your donors, your board, and your staff to participate in a GivingTuesday campaign. And then finally, and this can be sensitive in some organizations, so I'm not recommending this across the board, but if you have the kind of clients that would be willing to fundraise on your behalf and where it's appropriate, again, who is more passionate about your work than people that have been directly personally affected? So what does it take to ignite a fundraiser to want to do this? You need to be a little creative. As we've talked about, you're going to want to have a sort of a GivingTuesday campaign idea in mind, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You want to be able to articulate an authentic need. You want to help them understand that this is a personal appeal. This is their chance to tell their story about why they're passionate about your organization. You're going to equip them with some facts and some images if they need them, and some text. But really, this is going to be their chance to tell their story about your organization. And then you're going to need you're going to need people who are comfortable doing a social share, and ideally these are online donors, although there's nothing to say, the old March of Dimes way that people send things through the mail. There's nothing to say that if you're a lower tech organization and you still really find that direct mail is an effective strategy for you, that you can achieve a peer fundraising success with direct mail. It's just that it's much easier, of course, with online tools. And so here are the 4 things to help your supporters get going right now. So you want to set a theme, you want to create some basic visuals, and you want to think through a target amount, probably something in the $500 to $1,000 range, just to make it feel attainable but meaningful enough that a peer fundraiser will feel like it's worth it for them to invest the time. $1,000 is kind of the magic number, but I throw $500 in there at the lower end because if you've got either younger people that you're trying to bring into this or others, they may feel more comfortable with a number that's a little smaller. You want to make it really fun and easy. So again, this whole concept of celebrating and kind of communicating in a fun way with your ambassadors, this is a chance to really do that. You can create fun competitions, just friendly competitions where you can sort of say, who's ahead or how many people maybe you have from each of those different groups. If you think that you are going to think about, let's say, donors, board, and staff, then they can, in essence, become little teams. And you can say, look, we've got 5 staff people, we've got 10 donors, we've got only 2 board members. Where are you, board members? So you can do things that are fun and that keep it light, but that at the same time provide a little nudge to get people involved in the campaign. you really want to think about how to arm your supporters who are going to be doing your peer fundraising with some shareable content to keep their outreach fresh. So I suggest that you think about, being all locked and loaded with 3 or 4 stories about your work, perhaps 1 a week from the day that you activate them, and we'll talk about the timing of activation. Well, it's actually this last point. I really recommend that to keep the energy of a peer fundraising campaign high, that you keep it short. I think you want to get everything ready. You want to do all your recruiting. You want to get people ready and get their pages up. But you really don't want them to launch before November 1st, because a month is about as much time as you're probably going to keep people's attention in doing a campaign like this. And so keep it short. Be ready with 4 weeks worth of shareable content from November 1st to December 1st. It could be a little video, it could be an image, it could be a story about your work. Send it out on the same day every week so you don't overload your peer fundraisers with 3 emails a week when they don't know what they're supposed to do. Think about sending something out 1 or maybe at most 2 days a week on a predictable schedule, so they know that there's going to be, every Tuesday or maybe every Tuesday and every Friday, you're going to ask them to take 15 minutes and just spread the word and remind people about their campaign. So I want to sort of spend this last couple of minutes really talking about things that are critical to all campaigns, because whether you're doing monthly giving, peer fundraising, or any other kind of Giving Tuesday campaign, your whole campaign is really going to ride on your effective communication. And so I'm going to just speak for a moment about storytelling and a couple of the key elements of effective stories. So all campaigns really need 5 elements. You need that great story. You need to be communicating clear impact, as we've said a couple of times. In a campaign like Giving Tuesday, where you're asking people to give on a particular day, you really want to articulate an urgent need and why today's the day to give. Ideally, you want to have a very specific ask, and we sort of talked about that earlier, but it's the 20 by 200 idea, or it's the $50 feeds 1 puppy idea, where people know very concretely what you're asking them for. Because if you're fundraising on a particular day, again on Giving Tuesday, you're going to have just a short amount of time to break through, and then once you break through, you have about another 30 seconds to have people really feel like they understand what you're asking them to do and not be confused by it. And then finally is campaign consistency. So whatever you decide is the focus of your campaign, that message, those images, should be carrying through in all of your communication through the entire lead-up period to Giving Tuesday. You want to think about an iconic visual. You want to think about a tagline and a goal that will carry through. And you want to use that in every email that goes out tied to Giving Tuesday, in every, in your signature line, on your just general emails. Anything that you're doing tied to Giving Tuesday, you want to have that brand so that it really breaks through and people recognize it as something special. I think someone out there is unmuted. I'm hearing, again, a little bit of background noise. If you could just hit *6 and mute, we're almost done. So what are the elements of a great story? It's, if you think about it, and you think about all the great advertising that you see on TV, these days rarely is a refrigerator ad telling you that it keeps your food at a perfect 32 degrees and that you can hold 2 gallons of milk. What it's doing is it's telling you the story of that family whose life is made a little easier because of this refrigerator. Well, that is true in spades in the nonprofit world. You want your story to be authentic and emotional. You want it to be super easy to understand, right? It's not about what you do. It's about who's impacted and how the donor can matter. You really want to center your outreach on a person and support that by data. There was a great study that came out last year, and it talked about how people deal with disasters, and that if you just think about the visual metaphor of somebody walking out, after an earthquake, and there's a sea of people in front of them in need. If all they can see is the sea of people, they're paralyzed. They don't know where to start. But if they look down at their feet and they see one person, people know exactly how to jump in and get going, right? They know what to do. Well, outreach for nonprofits is really a lot like that. People don't want to hear about the scope of the problem until they understand how they can help one person. Then it's okay to say, and there are 5,000 more people like Susie that we serve every year, but first they want to understand the story of Susie. And then finally, it's so important that your readers really feel like their gift matters, because the problem for a lot of donors, first-time donors particularly, is they just don't know how their small gift is going to make a difference. It's a drop in the bucket. And so you want to be very clearly communicating how that happens. And so then, a typical story arc is also really important. And so I really like this traditional story map, because it can really help a nonprofit, particularly those of you who are, leanly staffed and you got to everybody's doing everything. How do you write a great story? Well, think about that iconic story that you want to tell. What's the client or the animal you serve or the cause you're advocating for, and how do you break it down into this story? So once upon a time, introduce your protagonist. Then the everyday talks about the problem that you're up against, the challenge that you need to overcome. Then until one day begins the story of where your organization comes into the picture and starts to help them overcome their obstacles. Because of this, now this young person who couldn't get to school has transportation every day because we are vehicles for change, and this mother now has the opportunity to drop her son off at school on the way to work. And then finally is that resolution that really defines your donor's impact. So this is just a very simple story map, but sometimes the simplest ways to do things are still the best. Finally, a quick note on visuals. You don't have to have professional visuals, although in Maryland we are lucky because there are a number of organizations that actually offer free photography to nonprofits. But it's important that your visuals catch people's attention and that they say something that gets people to move toward action. And here are just a few really good, crisp examples of visuals that are very effective. When should you get started? A question I get all the time, and whether I get this question in June or I get this question in November, my answer is always now. Of course, more planning is more effective. More is more, but it's not too late. Even if you've just got a week or two to go ahead of Giving Tuesday to put a great campaign in place. Probably not going to work for peer fundraising because you need a little time to recruit those peer fundraisers and get them set up. But for just about any other kind of campaign, you can really do something great even with just a little bit of time. But of course, more time definitely makes it easier to get your campaign off the ground. So with that, thank you so much. Let me turn it over to questions. You can, I should have said this in the beginning, you can put your questions right here in the chat box. Or you can unmute, although I'm a little concerned that if we have lots of people asking questions at once, we might not get to everything. But please feel free to jump in, and I'd be happy to answer as many questions as you've got. So let me start with a couple. So Caroline is asking, do you recommend a vendor that links to nonprofit websites for donations? So look, there are a lot of options for both monthly giving and peer fundraising, and they range across the board from a partner like CrowdRise that Maryland Gives More is working with as one of their partners to Classy and Fundly and Network for Good. Network for Good I happen to know very well personally, and they're doing a campaign where they are offering some matching funds for Giving Tuesday, so they can be a good choice for certain people if you don't already have a a great online giving site. But I would also say for many of you, if you do already have an online giving system, with one phone call you may find that you may already have access to some of the tools that we've been talking about, and that it's just a matter of enabling them in some kind of desktop or dashboard function that you may have and not even realize. So sometimes that can be the best first call, is to start with what you have. But certainly there are lots and lots of great providers of software that can make it really easy to run both peer fundraising and monthly giving campaigns. So you mentioned that there's a free resource for visuals for nonprofits. Yes, I'm having a senior moment on the name. It might be more photography, but I will look that up and make sure that we include it in the notes. Jabari, if you can remind me of that tomorrow. There's an organization that's a coalition of photographers around the city and state that will provide free photography for nonprofits, and all they ask is that you credit their work, and so we will get that to you in the follow-up recording that we share for this webinar. We will definitely email this presentation out, and we will also email out the link to the recording. So we always really appreciate it as we're trying to make Maryland Gives More campaign as big and far-reaching as possible across the state, that when you get that webinar recording email, we'd love it if you would send it to 5 people that you know in other nonprofits. You know, we know what a small community it is, and so just to help to spread the word, we certainly love it if you would share the recording of the video. Vanessa, hi Vanessa, is asking how you would encourage smaller nonprofits to stand out in the rush of Giving Tuesday. So, you know, I think this is a really great question, and I'll give you a very specific answer that perhaps will just stir your creative juices. So look, big nonprofits clearly have the reach and the staff to have a big voice on a day like Giving Tuesday. But I've been able to see firsthand in the campaigns I've been involved in that even the tiniest of organizations can really break through on Giving Tuesday by doing something creative. And some of it is the stuff that we've talked about today. Some of it is leveraging your own passionate supporters with something like a peer fundraising campaign. You know, another would be to do a really creative monthly giving campaign. But let me tell you one specific example. And for those of you who are on the phone for our webinar, it might have been a couple of weeks ago, you may have heard this example, but I still think it's worth repeating. There's a tiny organization called Badass Brooklyn Animal Rescue in New York, and they are an organization that was a client of Network for Good, whom I worked with last year on their National Giving Tuesday campaign. And they have no paid staff, or at the time they had no paid staff people. They were a volunteer animal rescue organization that rescued animals from kill shelters in the south and brought them to the north, and you know, adopted out the dogs that they rescued. And they didn't have much money and they didn't have staff people, but they really wanted to be part of Giving Tuesday. And so in what I thought was one of the most brilliant campaigns I've ever heard of, so this should be real food for thought for you guys, they decided to just do their work on Giving Tuesday, but make it their campaign. So they did a rescue. They got in there, and they let people know about this ahead of time. So they, in their emails leading up to it, they said, follow us as we do a rescue on Giving Tuesday, and they got in the car a little before midnight on Giving Tuesday last year, and they drove to Georgia. They tweeted and posted and Facebooked and Instagrammed, all the way down. They rescued 12 dogs from this shelter in Georgia. They have this fun, part of their brand is that they name all their dogs celebrity names. And so, a fluffy white poodle might be Paris Hilton, and a big strong bulldog might be, I don't know, some Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. But they name all their dogs. They put a bandana on their necks. They take pictures of them, and then the whole way back they're tweeting and posting about the Giving Tuesday dogs. And that campaign for this tiny organization put them in the top 10% of all the Giving Tuesday organizations that participated in Network for Good's National Giving Tuesday campaign, including some of the larger nonprofits in the country, because they did such a creative campaign. So don't be stymied by your small size or even your small reach. If you can show what you do in a way that's interesting and compelling, even the smallest organization can really do a great job. So that's just one specific example that could give you some food for thought. Let's see, what else? One other question, I guess, that maybe ties to this question about larger organizations is that I think that the thing that we find for small organizations is that in some ways you often have the people that have chosen to support you, they have a connection that can be leveraged in a way that's really different in many cases from larger organizations where their relationship with a donor may feel much more remote. So I might also think about whether there isn't an opportunity for some kind of special kickoff event. We've seen those work really well in smaller organizations because they are a chance to bring people together, or even a little phone bank. An organization in Baltimore did that on Giving Tuesday a couple of years ago when they got a bunch of just their passionate supporters together in a room and basically said, reach out to people, text, phone, and just say, look, have you heard about the Giving Tuesday campaign for this organization I'm really passionate about? And that organization too ended up raising a lot of money. So I just want to emphasize, size is not the trick on a day like Giving Tuesday. It's breaking through the noise with creativity and with sort of an authentic appeal, and starting with those sort of natural ambassadors that are most likely to help you spread your message. So we're just at 5 o'clock right now. If there are any last questions, throw them into the chat box. Otherwise, a couple of housekeeping things. Jabari will be sending out by end of day tomorrow the recording of the webinar as well as the slides. Oh, and thanks for Vanessa for confirming Be More Photography. If you look in the chat box, you'll see bemorephotography.org. Amazing organization, incredible local artists, and again, give them a big shout out. They themselves are also a nonprofit, so we want them to be helpful to you, but then encourage people to support their good work so they can help more people like you. And if there are no other questions, I want to say thank you so much. Sorry again for the technical difficulties in the beginning, but hopefully it was worth the wait. And I'll look forward to talking to you on the next webinar. And don't forget to go to MarilynGivesMore.com and get signed up. Thank you, everyone.